started soon just because we don't have a lot of time. So let me begin this madness.
There's a chair here.
I'm Professor Deborah Schultz from the History Department. We are putting together this event with the Student World Assembly and with the organization Self-Help, which works with Holocaust survivors in New York City. You may be surprised to know we have 5 guests today who are survivors, and you are going to have the rare pleasure of hearing Mrs. Sonia Klein's story today. In Brooklyn alone, there are 33,000 Holocaust survivors all around us. And just to speak personally for a moment, those of you who come from Jewish families know that we always hear the message to never forget the story of the Holocaust and to always pass it on to future generations. But for me, it's an enormous privilege to be able to work here at Kingsborough and to interpret that not only to pass on the stories through the Jewish community, but to pass on the stories to our incredibly diverse community here at Kingsborough. So I'm really grateful to everyone who made this day possible, and particularly to Mrs. Klein, who's now going to share her story, and she's had an incredible story. So please help me welcome Sonia Klein. Yeah, I think this is fine. So, without further ado,
I don't want to be with the back to the people.
it's okay.
I think I'm coming here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't use a mic. My name is Sonia Klein. I was born in Warsaw, Poland. I'm a Holocaust survivor of the Warsaw Ghetto, 4 concentration camps, Majdanek, Birkenau, Auschwitz, Ravensbrück, and Malchow, and the Death March. I don't know how many of you heard of the Death March. I'm given 15 minutes. Now, if I'm given 1,500 minutes, I don't think I can tell you just a tiny bit of my biography. I was 14 years old when the war broke out. I'm one of the very few people, few in tens of thousands, that survived with a sister, and my sister is here today, Sophie. How do I begin and where do I begin? My life was not in order, my stories are not in order. You know, I come and I speak quite often, and what happened is I don't sleep a couple of nights. So what? If not we, Holocaust survivors, who? And if not now, when? The message that we try to get across to younger people, to older people, to all people, is you must never forget what happened, so it doesn't happen again. It is hard to imagine that civilized, intelligent, educated people were capable of such atrocities and horror. Now, atrocities and horror, the human mind tries to forget. So I am not getting into any atrocities. But what, thank God, I was able to live through is something that I myself often wonder. Now, I look at the young people and I say to myself, how can you comprehend? It's very, very difficult because those are not occurrences that are happening every day. At the age of 14, I was thrown into a ghetto, Warsaw Ghetto, where 40,000 inhabitants lived before. 400,000 people were pushed into the area. People were taking in strangers. People were lying on the floors. But you still cannot accommodate 400,000 additional people. This is when the Nazis started the deportation from the ghetto. In order not to be able to hunt from house to house, they have told the people that were lying in the streets, cold, hungry, starving. Every day there were additional bodies in the street, not even covered with a piece of newspaper. They couldn't be buried fast enough because there were so many of them. We were told that if we meet at certain points, we will be taken to work. Now, when you're freezing and you're hungry and you're starving, you will do anything. When we reported to the places, we were taken to work. The work meant crematoria, concentration camp and crematoria. In 1942, we didn't know about it. In 1942, from Treblinka, I don't know if anyone here heard of Treblinka. That was the extermination place that had no work, just furnaces, gas chambers. A man came back under the closing and told us where our work is and what we are doing. Needless to say that after this, no one wanted to report to the places the Germans asked you to report. We were haunted. We were left 35,000 people in the ghetto when the Nazis declared the final solution of the ghetto. Big German tanks were surrounding the ghetto. We had 10-year-old boys that were jumping out from windows with little homemade bombs onto big German tanks. What did they try to do? Destroy the German tank? No. They just didn't want to go to the slaughter. We were marched out from the ghetto. The ghetto was burning on both sides. And we were taken to the first concentration camp, Majdanek. And my family, my mother, my father, young, healthy people, and my little brother, we were all there. The famous German left and right. Right was to work a little, and left was to the crematorium. Now, if I'm given 15,000 hours, I told you, it's impossible to tell all. I'm just giving you an idea of what human beings are capable of doing to other human beings. Now, we're not talking only 6 million Jews. We're talking 12 million people. There were 6 other million people that were not Jews. So we are talking about 12 million people, human beings, innocent human beings. When we got to the camp, my mother and my little brother went to the left, and at this point I don't have to tell you where they were taken. I saw my father through barbed wire a couple days later, and I asked him where my mother is, and he said, oh, she's in Block 5. But when we went out to work and we came across human bones, I knew that my mother is not in Block 5. So I asked my father a couple days later, and he shook his head. From this camp, Majdanek in Poland, 1,000 young women were taken on a transport. There were 20,000 people there, the last people from the Warsaw Ghetto. 1,000 young women were taken out, and the 19,000 were buried in one grave. Whether they were shot, whether they were murdered, I don't know, we were no longer there. My sister and I were on the transport, and the transport went to Birkenau, Auschwitz. I'm sure you heard of Auschwitz. Now, in Auschwitz, when we got there, our heads were shaved, our arms tattooed. I know we have tattoos now because they're fun, but my tattoo is no fun. Now, the tattoo on my arm, people say, why don't you remove it? It's true, I could remove it. However, how can I remove the tattoo from here? Impossible. I can be at the most joyous place, having a wonderful time. It's always there. Now, why do we really come to you people here and tell you all this? I told you the human mind does not want to know atrocities. Because we Holocaust survivors are up in age. Whatever my age is, I'm 100 years older plus in experience. And we come to you because you, young people and people all around, young or older, whoever are here, and I don't mean here in this room, are the ones who must remember the 12 million. Because otherwise, they would be murdered in vain. They were innocent people, and amongst them 1.5 million of children. Now, when we lose a loved one, we mourn. And after we mourn, we remember them forever. Now, our loved ones, our 12 million people, do not have a grave, and if they are not remembered, then they were murdered in vain. Now, I know that it is very difficult now to comprehend what I'm saying, but once you know, you will never forget. You know, when Hitler came to power, he surrounded himself by young people and promised them to do everything because the German economy was in shambles. He didn't get across to the young people immediately. However, when you plant something in people's mind, eventually it gets across. Now, we are coming to you, we Holocaust survivors are coming to you people to know what can happen to educated, intelligent people and why we must remember. We must remember so they didn't die in vain. Now, I am most thankful to the United States for giving myself and my family a country, an opportunity to start a new life. But it wasn't easy. My son was born in Germany. We had to live in Germany for 4 years because we had no visa to come here. And the people behind your back were saying we didn't know anything, but everybody knew. So it wasn't easy. So I'm most thankful and grateful to the United States. When we came here, my son was about 4. By the age of almost 6, he was sitting and playing with a little fort of cowboys and Indians, and I was playing at a table with my friend Jean Romy. And he played with his little Indians and cowboys. If I stepped on a little Indian by accident, I had to attend the funeral. Now, a couple days later, he comes over to me and he says, "Mom," I said, "Yes." "I don't want a number." "What number? What are you talking about?" "I don't want a number like you and your friends have." Now, at the age of 6, I once asked the facilitator, "What do you tell a child?" She says, "Well, really it is difficult." However, subconsciously, he felt it. He probably heard my husband and I talk. And it took him a long time to come to terms with it. However, once it's planted in your mind and you know that it comes from the first source. Now, I don't think that someone will deny to your face that it didn't happen. Am I correct? You are hearing it from first source. It happened. It happened to me, and it happened to 12 million others. I am here, and I had the opportunity to start a new life where the 12 millions did not. And this is why we must never, ever forget what happened to 12 million innocent people, including 1.5 million of children. Any questions?
Who would you blame more for the Holocaust? Would you blame more the Nazi Party or the German people?
There is good among everyone. I'm sure a lot of you saw Schindler's List. My husband was liberated in Germany. He was taken in by a German older couple. There were 3 friends. He was fed by them. There's good among everyone. You know, we here in the United States are the only country that is a melting pot. Perhaps we did not completely melt, but we are still the only country that is a melting pot. And so I was asked, do I hate? No. Hate, racism, and anti-Semitism leads to destruction. I won't forgive, and of course I will never forget, but hate is not the answer.
What gives you hope?
Pardon me?
What gives you hope? What gives you hope?
What gives me hope?
Yes.
I tell you what gives me hope. When you feel that you are taking almost the last breath, and that's how we felt, because we really did not feel that we are going to survive. And if you are given life back again, life is a very precious thing. And if you are given it back again after what could happen, you cherish it. And without a little bit of optimism, there's really not much life.
Thank you.
Sonia, Jack wanted to say a couple of words. Is that okay?
Would you mind?
No, go ahead.
Please. So this is another guest that we have, Jack Ratz, who's also a survivor, who spoke to my students earlier.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a survivor from a little country called Latvia. I was informed yesterday if I'm willing to testify about my life. So yesterday I had a photographer and a journalist, because they claim that I'm the last one still alive being a Holocaust survivor. I was born in Riga, Latvia in 1925. Now, when it comes to a number, I wrote a book. The book is on the market for the 15 years. Oh. And the book tells you everything about my life. I had 2 numbers in my lifetime, and a picture of myself. I went overseas to give my book in the museum. The curator says to me, you know, we'll put your book right over here. I look over here, I noticed that there were 5 prisoners with numbers. When I said to him, don't they have a name? We don't give names anymore, just the number. It turned out to be that I had 2 numbers. After spending in 1941, I got arrested on July 2nd, 1941, and I was liberated in a different country in Germany on March 10, 1945. Through the 44 months I spent in 2 concentration camps, 2 death marches, 2 ghettos, and war camps. Now, to be honest with you, my mission, like the latest mission, is important, that the whole world has to know what happened 70 years ago. I'm still alive, and we're trying to explain to you people, no matter how we feel about it, that we have to tell people like yourself, you are our PR people, you're going to represent us. We'll never should forget what happened to us so many years ago. And I'm saying that we are all God's children. Remember, no matter what religion do you have, we have to live in peace and harmony. So I'm going to make it short. Today, unfortunately, I lost my wife around 9 years ago, but she was born in the United States. I still live by myself. We have 3 married children. My daughter is the one who finished in the university in Israel, Bar Ilan. Then she went for epidemiology degree in Boston Medical School, and then she went in NYU. My younger son also went to 2 colleges, and now he's a doctor. My older son is a pharmacist. They all happen to have children, and they all happen to have grandchildren. This is my accomplishment in life. Can you imagine? I was born we were 5 sons altogether, and 4 of us were 4 of them were shot by the Nazis. Just to bring out the point, what was the reason for the Nazis and the Russians somehow to kill out so many people to begin with? Today, they all have families, they all have homes, and they're all doing very well. There's no reason to kill each other and fight with each other. So my mission is to speak as long as I can, and we should live in peace and harmony. Thank you very much.
Does anybody else have a question? Yes.
For him. Have you returned to your hometown since you've been liberated?
Maybe Jack and then Sonia.
I didn't
The
hear, I'm
question
sorry.
is, have you returned to your hometown?
No.
Yes, I
Since you've
did.
been
Okay, so.
I
Sonia.
didn't, because I consider the soil there is not soil, it's blood. After all the concentration camps and after the death march, I couldn't. I can't. I told you, I don't hate, but I can't forgive.
I happened to go back to my country a couple of times. Unfortunately, nobody left as far as survivors are concerned. Because unfortunately, I was going back to my country, I would say a couple of times, because I want to show my children how we lived in peace and harmony with a wonderful life. Right now, the country itself is beautiful, but the memories are terrible. I still made sure to take my kids with me, and today they're all married, and my grandchildren are married already too. They should remember the life we lived before the war. Thank you.
Yes.
During the time, did you ever lose your faith?
I didn't hear you.
Never.
Did you ever lose your faith?
No, I never lost my faith. I went to school, religious school, till the war started. Actually, we had a double 90. We first were invaded by the Russians in 1940. They closed up all the congregations and all the churches because they happened to be atheists. When the Germans attacked Russia, they were already under Russian rule, 1940 to 41. The Germans decided on July 2nd, 1941, the city where I was born, they went ahead and burned up 64 congregations, including the people in it.
Some people lost their faith. I don't condemn them. I personally say there's a higher being, and I have faith by the world, by the grace of I don't know, the Almighty or my parents or who. But I don't condemn the ones that lost their faith.
Other questions? Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. Why do you think the Jews were hated so much?
I'm sorry, honey.
I said, why do you think the Jews were hated so much?
Honey, it wasn't only Jews. I told you, there were 12 million people. The other 6 million were non-Jews.
So why, like the target?
Why? Because we, the 12 million Jews, the 6 million Jews and 6 million other people did not fit into Hitler's pure race.
Yeah.
Is this it? I mean, you know, it's like I have to fit it. What does race, color, or religion have to do with being human beings?
Other questions? Okay.
What was your experience like when you first arrived in the United States?
I can tell you how thankful I am to the United States for giving us this opportunity, for taking us here. We had no country, we had no home, we had nothing. And here we were given the opportunity. You know, like I said before, we are the only country that is a melting pot. Perhaps not melted completely, but still the only country in the world that is a melting pot.
Yeah. I like to tell you right now, when I arrived in the United States, I wasn't quite 20 years old. By myself, and I made up my mind, like the lady said, that it's a beautiful country, no question about it. I met my wife a couple of years later. We got married. We were married 57 years and built a beautiful life. Today I live in a very nice home by myself, unfortunately, and I made sure my kids have a wonderful life too. And I became a television repairman in those days, and I was right now there's no repair work to be done. Even I fixed the television set by the mayor of New York, Mayor Beam, in the Great Dimension. And later on, I made up my mind to work with the transit. I became to work with the transit on the railroad stations as an electrician throughout the system. And after finishing, I started to retire 25 years ago. They gave me a beautiful party because my title was assistant superintendent. And I treat people beautiful because I know how I was treated during my lifetime. And that's the way I treated people. I made them to be happy, and I showed them how you can live a normal, beautiful life. I would like to add something else to it. That my grandson, my youngest grandson, is going to Kingsborough.
I have a question for the young lady. I've been to combat twice, right? And I hear your story. And my question
Wait
is
1
how-
second. I'm
Okay.
coming a little closer because I want to hear it.
All right, I've been to combat twice, and my question is, how did you and your sister keep the sanity? How did you guys, what did you guys think about when you lost?
Let me tell you something. I am often wondering myself and asking myself, how on earth are we as sane as we are? How didn't we lose our mind? But apparently, the human mind and the human body can take a lot more than we think. We should not be put to task, but it can take a lot. But I also want to tell you something else. The people that liberated some of the camps, our soldiers, that liberated some of the camps, couldn't live for the rest of their life not remembering what they saw. Because the picture they saw is something that one cannot imagine. Like I said, I don't want to put any horror or atrocities in your mind, but you have no idea what we were subjected to. No idea. But I'm going to tell you another thing. I got married to my wonderful, wonderful husband of blessed memory. I knew him 1 week. Now we get married because we love a person or we are in love with a person. I got married because I needed a pair of shoes on my feet because from the death march, when we were liberated, the shoes were cut away with my skin because they were rotten on my feet. And I needed a piece of bread to eat. That's how I got married. But I want to tell you, I had a husband who, if I were asked what type of a man I would like to marry, I could not have expressed what I really had. I had the most wonderful husband, and we were married 55 years. And again, I'm thankful to the United States for giving us the opportunity to start a new life here.
of questions here so that you can take our friend to the floor.
I have to come closer.
You want to stand up?
Yes.
Can you stand?
Day by day, like how would you reinforce your faith? How would you reinforce your faith, like day by day? Going
Reinforce your faith?
Yeah.
So how did you keep your faith on a daily basis? How did you?
You know what? We didn't even think of faith because the conditions we lived under, every second that we lived was living a day. And all we had in mind is how do we get something to survive? How can we eat something to survive? We were given, and without exaggeration, a piece of bread this size and a 9-inch cup of potato soup, of potato peel soup for a day. When you live under conditions like this, you really don't think. You think of one thing, how can I have something that I don't starve? How I kept my faith after? Because I'm thankful for what was given to me.
I'm going to be selfish and ask you a question if I may, and then we're going to come back over here and over here. A little bit related to your question. I respect the fact I've had the pleasure of hearing you speak a couple of times, and I really respect the fact that you don't dwell on the negative and on the atrocities, but you don't mince words about the truth either. I wanted to ask you, who is the most inspirational person that you encountered when you were in the camps, who maybe gave you something to help you go on?
My sister, and I adopted in the camp, another sister who worked together with me. Now, when we were taken in Auschwitz to work, we worked, my sister and I were working in a so-called shoe commando. What was a shoe commando? We were taking apart shoes of the victims. Every time I took a pair of shoes in my hand, black shoes, brown shoes, baby shoes, white shoes, my heart stopped. I knew where the shoes came from. Now, when you live like this, I don't know if we were living, we were barely breathing. What do you think of? What do you really think of? You really don't. You say if it's not today, it's tomorrow. However, my sister and my adopted sister, when we were on the death march, were holding me up under my arms. I could no longer walk. I could no longer see. It was day and night. We walked for weeks. I couldn't see. So I really and truly, my sister and my adopted sister that really saved me at that point.
Can I say something?
Okay. Please? Yeah, no, go ahead. I just want to make sure.
I want you to know I spent 2 death marches. And there was a difference between treating men and treating women. I was in a concentration camp called Salaspils, where I'd seen how people tortured Russian prisoners. And I had another concentration camp called Stutthof. Stutthof was terrible. We spent 8 weeks in Stutthof, and our particular work is done only by human beings. We had seen the shoes actually on wagons, and the wagons were pulled by human beings. We used to get up in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. We used to call it the Appellplatz. And if you want, I have right here a picture of the quarters in Stutthof, in the barracks. We slept on 3 tiers. Number 1, number 2, number 3. The bottom tier was 4 men. The middle tier was 3, and the top was 3. And one bed with the other bed stayed together. Naturally, we couldn't sleep at night. I wound up sleeping upstairs. 3 o'clock in the morning, we hit the Appellplatz. And I had to tell, I stayed with my father together and a cousin. In the middle of the night, we got a call. They call us out with the number. We did not have a name in Stutthof. Our number, my number was 92,396. And right next to the number was a triangle. We had a yellow triangle, like a yellow star. If you happen to be some kind of politician, there was a blue triangle. Jehovah's Witness was a brown triangle. And we had to make one day a party. What was the party? We had to watch how people are being hanged, because those people who got caught were running away from the Stutthof, and they were hanged, and we had to watch that they're being hanged because they gave us a warning. Remember, you want to try to escape, you'll be hanged. And to top it off, some people didn't feel like living anymore. I spent in this particular camp 8 weeks. And some people decided they cannot stay anymore, they cannot live anymore. And all our fences was electrified. And if a man didn't feel like living anymore, he walked up to the fence right away and committed suicide. We did not have gas chambers. We only had crematoriums. But the minute they picked up the people, put them right in the crematorium, they got burned up right on the spot. At the same time as me, I was sick, but I had to go to work. If I was going to stay in the barrack, I would get killed too. So it happened to be the night when I stayed outside with my father. I carried on my neck a little canvas bag, which we had in a canvas bag a spoon, and I had a dish, a metal dish, which was hooked up by me right over here on a piece of rope. This was something I was drinking my coffee from the dish, and having the same lady what she said about potatoes and stay in the water. I made up my mind, I'm going to go ahead and write poetry. But my poems is written in a different language, in Yiddish. And my poems were printed already in the newspapers. And I'm saying it, we have to stay in the street, in the rain, and drink this type of water. And this type of potatoes. In the morning I was saying that the coffee, in Yiddish is a shitter, as David Eleven is the bitter, which means the coffee is so bad, like the life is so bad over here too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
And I wanted to like throw everything that you have experienced. What was the hardest part of it all?
The hardest part of it all was when I lost my parents. When we lost, you know, we were together in the Warsaw ghetto, and when we got to the first camp, when I lost them, my mother, my father, they were 40-year-old healthy people, and my little brother who was 10, that was the hardest. When you left alone, and thanks to the Almighty, I was left with my sister, but life at that point really did not matter this much. We didn't think we will survive. We were hoping, but we really didn't think so. Not under the circumstances that we were.
Let's take your question. Did you want to, or here's that as well? Okay, please.
In my case, I lived in Riga, Latvia, where the ghetto only existed 2 months. We had 2 ghettos. We had a ghetto, a large ghetto, and a small ghetto. The large ghetto was eliminated exactly between November the 30th, 1941, on December 8th, they killed the rest of the Jews. Over 30,000 people were killed in Rumbly Forest. Hopefully another month or two, I'll show this on Channel 13. Now, I lost, my mother wasn't even 40 years old. My brothers, one was 12, one was 9, and one was 1-year-old. They were all shot. That's right, they were all shot. And we wound up going in a small ghetto. And as far as life is concerned, they made us to go to work. So I'll remember some more. I'll send that one to some more.
Thank you, thank you.
Deborah,
Yes.
this is someone who's an asked a question.
Okay, yes.
Out of all of what you've been through, what was your one guiding light that kept you going?
Pardon me?
Out of all that you've been through and experienced, what was your one guiding light that kept you going?
You know, the will to live is very strong. You may not think so when you're under conditions like this, but subconsciously you want to live. And once you are given this breath of life back, only for one split second of a second, when I was liberated, did I ask myself, do you really want to go on? For what? For where? You have nothing, and you have almost no one. But the will to live is very strong, so when you get your life back, you really appreciate it.
Can I say something? The last place, the marching on the death march. And the place we arrived in the death camp called Gothendorf, which is not far from Stettin, not far from Danzig. And at the same time marching on the death march, we were thinking what's going to be with us later on, because we knew the war was going to be ended soon. I was fortunate enough to speak to around 6 high schools upstate New York, near Albany. And the principal asked me a question. Mr. Roth, you lived through a lifetime. Can you tell us what would recommend to our children to be? I said, as far as I can tell you, when I walked in the death march, my mind was to be a baker. I was hungry. At the end, I said to the listen, guys, as far as I can tell you, I didn't become a baker. But at the same time, in my way, to keep on going, when I have a lifetime for myself, living the normal life like anybody else does, I made up my mind, whatever I'm going to be, I have to be good in it. And try to make sure I make a good life. So at the end, I became a television repairman. And I said to myself, now I have a chance, I should be good in it. When I said to the kids, remember, be whatever you decide to be. Could be a tailor, could be a carpenter, could be a watchmaker, could be a doctor. But be good in it. Otherwise, you'll work for McDonald's.
When I was growing up, maybe at the age of about 10, I wanted to be a teacher because my teacher was very nice, and she really influenced my mind of being a teacher. Never continued my education, unfortunately, but a couple of weeks ago, I was at the charter school, and I was made an honorary teacher without education.
And I got a diploma from a high school.
Yeah, so I just have a quick question. You were talking about how it was unbelievable how these civil intelligent people were capable of all these atrocities and injustice done to the Jews and the other 12 million people. So considering how erratic human behavior is, does it scare you that history might repeat itself in this modern, so-called civil, technologically advanced era?
Yes, and this is why it is so important that young people know what can happen. We can't fight, but we can make a difference. By knowing, we can make a difference. And this is why my sleepless nights are not for nothing. I will have more sleepless nights for as long as I can stand on my 2 feet and have my voice. Because it is very, very important that everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
By knowing, you will prevent it from happening.
Yeah.
So on that note, I want to thank you, Sonia, Sophie, Jack, for being our teachers, for coming and sharing so generously, and for all of you for listening and thinking, and we hope this will be an ongoing conversation, and that all of these thoughts that we've heard today will stay in your mind, and that you will continue to talk about this very important issue.
And I say thank you for having us here.